Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. And happy June. In happy Pride Month and everything that's happening, despite the world going into all different directions. I truly believe that being in community with each other definitely helps us be better together. So I hope you are enjoying and having a wonderful, wonderful day. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with Rosanna Scarpati, who is not only an amazing Latina leader, but she is also one of our chapter leaders, fabulous, fabulous chapter leaders. And today she is here to take us through around everything finance in terms of what's happening right now with digital assets and stock trading and all of these things which are I don't want to say new, but in a way for many of us that are not in the financial sort of world, they are. And it's very important that we become aware about what's happening today, where are we moving forward to, and what do we need to know, because it is part of building our wealth and it is part of us being able to build a legacy for the rest of our family. So thank you so much, Rosanna, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Eliana. Thank you for having me.
Amazing. So financial literacy, not something that many of us have or have access to. It's not something that comes up in our common conversations. But why is it important that we all, become like, what's the basics? What should we all sort of start thinking about in terms of becoming more aware about finances and basically the money that comes into our lives?
Well, Eliana, we need to start with understanding like a little bit of history. So understanding that the playing field is obviously not equal. We're pretty much all aware of that. But women really have only had access to money and credit for about 50 years or so. And it's still been, kind of weird about how the protections around it kind of work. So knowing that and knowing that money is constantly changing, every business cycle, there's a new kind of wealth transfer that occurs. And right now is that, digital wealth transfer that's happening. And a lot of people have been skeptical about it, not believing in it. There's been so many scams out there. So finally, the regulations around it are happening, and they're happening imminently. So last year, around July, we had the Genius Act. So that kind of brought in the kind of, okay, we're going to verify what this digital asset means, what this is all about. And now, within the next month or two, possibly, we'll have the Clarity Act, which is really going to bring in regulations that really make digital assets and tokenization just the next thing that actually will be part of the financial system. Traditional finance, every kind of finance. So what's important is for us to really understand that what we grew up with, work hard, buy your house, save your money, and then you can retire, that is really, really outdated. It is not the way it's going to happen. You're going to be left behind if you're not really paying attention to what's happening around you. And it's happening behind closed doors and not, there's little hints of it here and there. But if you're not really attuned to it, it's going to happen and you're going to blink and your wealth is going to be a percentage of what it was before. So it's more about education, making sure that your financial freedom is still possible and you'll have those choices in the future.
You bring up so many like really important things because we're playing with two things, well, many, but one, to your point, uh, as a community, many of us were not born with just the finance hat on, right? With understanding even like savings. It's el dinero abajo del colchón, right? Like don't even take it to the bank. And now to your point, the world, the financial world with these digital assets and cryptocurrency and all of these things is dramatically changing. So we need to really accelerate that learning to not only catch up to where we should have been, but now catch up to where we need to be, right? So what are that catch up is going to take a long time, but if we focus, it will be significantly better. So what do people need to understand? What do people need to at least focus on for now to start not feeling overwhelmed about everything that, where we need to be?
So I think one of the things that I started focusing on about 10 years ago, and mind you, I've been in finance, but when you're in finance, you're kind of in that world. I was in fixed income, so I kind of concentrated on that. And even people in finance have been skeptical about digital assets. So about 10 years ago, I started really educating myself. And I realized there was a huge democratization that was happening, right? So assets and investments that weren't accessible to people like you and me, that were really only for the multimillionaires, has become more accessible to regular people. So that once you've paid off, so let me start with, once you've paid off your high high interest credit cards, once you've put away your emergency fund, the 3 to 6 months of kind of savings for equivalent to what you would need for to live for 3 to 6 months. Once you've done those things, and not necessarily kept up with the Joneses, and not kept, buying things every time you have extra money, bought a new bag, bought a nicer car. When you do those things, you're always a little bit behind. You're always kind of still trying to stretch into the investment side of things. So if you plan ahead and put your ducks in a row, you can start investing little by little and diversify into these places that you didn't have access to before, right? So you can invest in startups, you can invest in, different properties, housing, and do the Airbnb type thing, or whatever it is that you want to do. And you can start really ensuring that you're going to have different streams of income in the future. And so what you need to do is educate yourself what you have access to, because we didn't even have access to these things, over a decade ago. Men and women. So it's not just women. Men and women didn't have access to these things. So these things are being opened up. So right now, in history, we have the most kind of the access to the most amount of investment types than we've ever had before. So what does that mean is you can really diversify in a way that you're really not going to be in a pickle when you are 70 plus and you can't work the way you used to work, or you don't want to work. You want to have that leisure time and give yourself that opportunity. So as much as it might seem really confusing, there's so many things out there, especially with just AI at your fingertips. You can just start asking AI, what investment types are out there for someone that has 100,000 to invest. Things like this can just start opening the doors to your possibilities and your mindset about what you can do with the money that you have.
You actually got me thinking, because you're right. There's more accessibility, and clearly, hopefully in the next few months, there's going to be even more accessibility to all of these different types of investments, but also with more opportunities and more options. Then it also, you just said it can become more confusing. Like, if I only had one option, it was either that or nothing, period. But now that I have all of these, and without the understanding, because most of us are not in the finance world, like without the understanding, then it becomes very, that's where scams happen, or making the wrong choices happen because we're not aware. So how do you suggest those of us that are not in the finance world, like how do we tackle this? And I know you mentioned AI being one of the steps of at least gaining a little bit more awareness and understanding and education on what the options are, but it still doesn't have all the answers. What would you suggest?
Well, first of all, if I wasn't in finance, I would, number one, definitely get a financial advisor. So that's important to have a financial advisor, but ensure that, because not all financial advisors are made the same. So you want to find someone that is really flexible and open to different things. So for example, I have a friend that wanted to really go very deep into Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example, and their financial advisor just completely was not on board with it and said, no, we can only do 15% max, and they were butting heads. So while she doesn't know all of the information about why she wants it, it's still her money and it's still your decision. If you want to be risky, right? So it's all about your risk profile. If you know that you have kind of a safe haven of cash and assets that you will retire comfortably, and now you have some money that you just want to play with, like, wow, maybe it'll hit, maybe it won't. That's up to you, and you need to know that. So each person really has to acknowledge what their finances look like. And that's another thing, Ileana, that a lot of women sometimes don't know. If they're not the main breadwinner, or if their partner is the one that's paying the bills and the mortgage and has the business, they don't always know what the family kind of wealth looks like. And so the first thing I would say is ensure you know that. Ensure what's coming in, what's going out, what's owed, and really understand when things have to be kind of paid for. Not necessarily just panic when you realize you have, oh my God, you have $500,000 in debt. We can't invest. No, you can still invest. You can still do things, and it's all about what kind of debt. There's the good debt. There's the bad debt, right? So all of that is really primary and really important. Now, once you've gotten to that money that it's kind of like, okay, if it hits, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. That's when you can comfortably invest, I would say, because if you're a novice to this, it's going to be a roller coaster. Because if you see right now, the markets, Bitcoin is kind of plummeting, and a lot of digital, assets, altcoins are plummeting, and they go up and down all the time. And if you don't have the stomach for that, or the financial kind of stability for that, it's probably not the best place to be putting your money. So all of those things are things you need to speak with a financial advisor, and kind of just make sure that you go through your finances yourself. There's so many apps out there that can help you. You can just funnel all your credit card, all your direct deposits into them, and it'll let you know. So it's not something that you used to do. The way I used to do it was an Excel spreadsheet. So you don't have to do that anymore. It's kind of really easy for you if you want to just really see, where are you? Where do you stand?
That is important. And here at United Latinas, building wealth is definitely one of our tracks. So we're going to continue to build a lot of these, not only information with experts like Rosanna, but we're also starting to think about partnerships like we've had with Libra Leaders in the past, and Laura Lucas, and many other experts that are going to be able to come here and share not only their wisdom, but you talk about apps and spaces and places where you can at least feel more comfortable in these investments. So stay tuned about that. Now I heard about maybe 2 years ago about 24-hour trading. And stock markets have not been a place where you get good returns now for a while. I mean, you do, but it's not how it was. And for me, that 24-hour trading was something that I was always curious, like, oh my God, how does that work? There are a couple of apps out there also that help on that. But today it's becoming more and more prevalent. Like, what does that mean, and what should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So we're talking about stock markets now. Stock markets, obviously historically have always opened 9 o'clock, closed by a certain time, depending on whether it's a holiday or not. And now a lot of these stocks have gone over into the digital asset space, with the idea that kind of like digital, coins and all these things can trade all the time, any day, all day, any minute of the day. And now stocks want to play too. So places like Coinbase, I think Robinhood, eventually too, are now all incorporating stocks as well, which is super exciting. Because a lot of times, I know for me, I'd put in a buy order, a sell order, and then I'm go to sleep overnight, and I'm hoping that it hits. Things like this. Now you get to whatever time you have. So it's helpful for people that have those 9 to 5 jobs that aren't able to trade during the day. And so it gives us more flexibility, more ability to get involved when we do have that downtime. So I actually think it's really a great thing for the population as a whole, that it's not going to be just for those people that are, really honed in on what's happening with the markets. They can also come in at night. They can start looking at their technicals. They can start doing their own research, and they can play as well.
I love that. And yes, we're in a couple of those apps, and it's just interesting because they share a lot of information, like quick summaries of what's happening in the market, companies, trends, and things like that. And it just helps you again in this financial literacy of becoming aware not only about small things, but about the economy, like what's happening in the world in general, and that helps. So definitely something that I would recommend just to get into some of these apps, not necessarily to trade if you don't feel like you have that knowledge, but at least to learn and to see what's happening. So definitely a great move to expand our interest. Now, as Latinas and as women, again, we have certain habits that either help us or not in these financial moves. What are things that we should watch out for, or that we could start making as of today to truly strengthen our financial future?
Well, with social media out there, everyone always wants to follow somebody that can kind of guide them. I would say be really careful, because there's tons of tons and tons and tons of people out there promoting different stocks, different meme coins, altcoins. I think about 5 years ago, that's when like the meme coin disasters started happening with BlackBerry, with AMC, all these other ones, and I saw it myself when I was still in corporate. A lot of people were just like playing around with it; they just didn't care, and some people, very few people, made some money. A lot of people lost money. And so what I would say is make sure that you know who you're following, make sure you know who you're listening to and their track record and what they really like, where's the money going? So is it that they want to bring you in and charge you $1,000 a month to hear their recommendations? Or are they, so out of it, out of like the world of finance, that they are just kind of really trying to give and pour into people and educate people? So there's different types of, kind of experts out there that you should really be aware of, that they aren't all out for your best interest. So careful with that. The other thing I would say is really, if you're going to be a day trader, that's a totally different world. But if you're going to be a consistent kind of investor in something, just ensure that you're putting away a certain amount of money each month, and it's going into things that are well diversified. So what I would suggest for people, and this isn't financial advice, but what I would suggest for people is to find what ETFs they are in tune with, they really like, they're in alignment with, and invest in 4 or 5 of those each month, and put in, let's say, $50, and it goes 10, 10, 10, 10, right? And it's just constantly growing, and you're not really worried about what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Canada, what's happening over here, because it's just kind of going to keep compounding in the right direction, because you're diversified enough that they're not all correlated. And so when things are going bad in one area, the other ones will be holding their own. That's kind of how I look at really the passive type of investing that you want to do when you're not really a financial expert. And or of course going to your financial advisor and just letting them take the wheel. But a lot of people don't like that anymore. And a lot of people say that financial advisors, they're going to have to be so good and add so much value to really keep people's business, because so many people really are going to be able to do these things on their own.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as we get to the end of this, one thing that somebody once told me, and I think it just helps reframe how we look at our money, right? If your money today, whether it's $1 or whatever, is not making money for you, then that's a loss, right? So keeping the money just in a checking account, it's basically your money's not moving, and then therefore you're losing money. Anyways, you think that you're not losing money, but because you're keeping it there, but in reality, it is losing money. So, whatever you do, it's always about thinking, how can we make a difference in this?
Yes, yes, Juliana. And actually, I would add to that when we talk about that emergency fund, you don't want to just have it in like the savings that is right next to your checking that can easily be transferred over. You want to have it in a different bank, a high yield savings bank that's not actually, a real in-person location, because it makes it that much harder to transfer that money. It takes about 3 days sometimes. And so by that point, maybe you realize, okay, I don't have to buy this. Maybe I can do something else. So it's out of sight, out of mind type thing. You want to have that savings that's your rainy day fund away from where you're looking at your bills, your checking account, everything there. And also you're going to get a higher rate. So your checking account obviously doesn't give you anything. Your savings account in your checking gives you like 0.02, whereas a high yield savings will give you right now anywhere from 3.5 to 4 point, something. So that makes a real difference with money that's just sitting there, that's not doing anything. It's at least making some money for you.
Exactly, exactly. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rosanna, for giving us a little bit of more awareness into a very, very important topic. And this doesn't stay here. Like, we're going to continue to build these spaces in different ways throughout United Latinas so that we all continue to get more educated, because it's critically important, not only for our financial well-being, but for our families, and to continue to build a legacy. So thank you so much, Rosanna, for sharing your wisdom with us here today. And you can find Rosanna as one of our members in United Latinas. You can find her on LinkedIn. Where else can they find you?
Oh yeah, Instagram also, coach underscore Rosanna underscore S.
Amazing. And she's an excellent coach. So feel free to reach out to her. By all means, we invite you to do that as
Thank
well.
you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful day wherever in the world you are. And see you next week in another Cafecito. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye bye.